Hey everybody! Welcome to Friday the 13th, the series. I'm your producer, Robert.
And I'm your guest, Jeremiah.
And after a complete, spoiler-filled recap of the episode, we are going to discuss the show you either just learned existed or always wondered how it existed. We promise the answers will be few and far between because we're just here to have some goofity fun exploring a show that, despite or possibly even because of its faults, isn't good and isn't so bad it's good, but is still somehow oddly charming. Let's dive in, shall we? Welcome to a bit of an odd one for us, both in terms of the show in general and the multi-part review of this episode in particular. First, we actually stay largely on topic, continuing the discussion of the episode up to the next commercial break, then I recap the next section of the show, and finally, we discuss that. Second, during the later discussion, Jeremiah asks a seemingly innocuous question, rispetto the lore of the show. We suddenly realize we spent 5 episodes agreeing on every tree, despite looking at entirely different forests, and he and I fall instantly into one of our intractable debates that proved too long to wrap up in this episode, so look for more of that next time. But before one can launch a proper ad hominem attack, one must know said homonym. So, Jeremiah works in the film industry and is a Friday the 13th the series expert. I make this podcast and am discovering Friday the 13th the series episode by episode. He brings the expertise, humor, professionalism, gravitas, and good looks. What I provide is less tangible, but equally important, I assure you. Also worth knowing, we refer to the vampire of the episode not as Frank, but Jagger. If you'd like to join the debate, but feel like you need evidence before you can take a stance, cruise by the Inner Demon Entertainment website, where you can find a YouTube link to every episode of Friday the 13th, the series, available to stream for free. Now, let's get on with an episode that, like a coworker's funeral, is funny until it isn't. You know from our crystal ball segment that I like to gaze into the future and let time make fools of us all. So I'm going to make a prediction here. As every single other divergence from classical vampire lore has really seemed to ruffle your feathers, I'm guessing you have a note here about what happens when they burst outside and send this shaft of light down upon Jagger.
Yeah, I mean, any attempt at vampire lore, even the classical ones, it's not consistent across all vampire tales and vampire stories.
Right, but some elements are weighted heavier than others, Jeremiah.
Some are weighted heavier than others, but even beyond that, you want it to be consistent with its own lore, at the very least, right? If this world saying, yes, garlic affects it, then garlic should affect it consistently.
What Robert Meyer Burnett refers to as verisimilitude.
Right.
Consistency within your own story.
Right. So if they want to say, for instance, that with the vampire mistress who opens the door in broad daylight, that they're not impacted by the sun. Yeah, that's a pretty big discrepancy from normal vampire lore, but fine.
Yeah, you can have Twilight vampires that simply sparkle when sun gets on them.
Right, exactly.
But he does react like he's being hurt, just not killed.
He reacts like he's being hurt and he cannot go any further. He has to run away. He doesn't catch fire or sizzle.
The idea that sunlight is the worst thing for vampires and kills them outright is so ingrained in me. When I was writing the script, I continued in the vein that he has to be hiding out in this warehouse so he doesn't die during the day. But I don't even think that's true now. I think he's just hiding out from the mob.
Well, yeah, and he continues to hide out in the same warehouse, even after people know that he is in this warehouse.
Oh yeah, it's in the script.
He could go to any other number of warehouses in this district. Choose a different one on the block.
Yep, your cover is blown. Go literally anywhere else.
It's not the classic vampire lore where he needs his coffin or he needs to be in the soil from his homeland or something like that. He just picked a random building off the street, and he could easily pick another random building to go back to.
I noted that in the script, and now I'm going to confess, this is something that's only coming to me right now, in this moment, for the first time. What's to stop him from just pricking the finger of some woman on the street, smearing their blood on the clasp, and traveling through time with her? It's all Mickey-based?
Yes, because I think, this wasn't explained in the setup.
The setup or the body or the conclusion.
Well, but it seems like in the performance, the cape has made him and Mickey both obsessed with each other. They're both under the cape spell in that sense. So there's that element to where, yeah, I think in that sense it is all about Mickey. But also, we had the little poem that the mistress said about the cape does this, the clasp does this. She just said the clasp allows you to travel through time. She didn't specify that it takes 2 drops of blood from 2 different people. We, because of close-up shots and slow motion shots of 2 drops of blood coming down and specifically hitting the class, realize that that's what must trigger it.
The incredibly specific thing that needs to happen that nobody was aware of.
Yeah, no one would be aware of this, so obviously the logic could fairly be that Jagger doesn't understand how this works. He just showed up here. Then that's blown by the inconsistency that Ryan does know how it works, which is really the problem, right?
I'm going to have to cut in here and just pitch you right now in the room, Jeremiah. Let's see if I sell this. Crank meets a vampire film, which is basically what we have here. He just has to feed like every 5 minutes.
Right.
And we just follow him in real time as he's desperately running around trying to find his next source of blood.
Yeah. Well, no wonder there's so much speed alteration. It is like Crank. I guess it's the inverse, right?
This is over Crank.
Exactly.
After they escape and go back to Brom and Caitlin's apartment, did you have any thoughts on Ryan putting his hand on his cousin and then kissing her in her catatonic state?
Oh, man. I think I just space out on that stuff now, frankly.
You're numb to it?
Yeah, I probably should have. And honestly, it's saying more that it did not jump out at me. Says a ton in itself, because yes, that 100% should have, but no, I didn't. I was not as disturbed by that. I'm completely desensitized, I suppose, to some degree.
Getting dangerously close to Euro trip here.
Yeah.
And then you made out with your sister.
I mean, at least the sister was awake for it.
Exactly.
This is also the scene where Ryan turns to Abraham and says, "Well, now do you believe me?" Abraham's response is, "Yeah, I'm having a hard time with all this stuff, but I guess I can kind of get it given how much I love Caitlin." He's focusing on how hard it is to believe Mickey being under a love spell. No, I think the believe me part's about the vampires, not the fact that Mickey's vampires is part that you should be having a hard time getting right now. Abraham's lines are there to beat it down our throats that he is A, a writer, and B, is absolutely obsessed with Caitlin for reasons that will pay off emotionally later. These lines are there to hit these points home, not to actually be natural responses to what Ryan or whoever is saying to him.
Bit of an exposition bot.
Which they've already established. That's the other thing, too, is it's a redundant one. Well, let's have him say it again, because what if the audience missed it? What if they still don't get it?
Well, we get it, episode. We don't understand any of it, but we get it.
But we get it, yeah.
Don't worry, we'll headcanon the whole episode. We'll do the lion's share. You just tell your story however you want.
Another fun thing with this scene is Bram goes from insisting, no, Ryan, you're going to need me. I need to come with you. And then Caitlin's like, but honey, it's dangerous. And he instantly turns around with Ryan standing there and consoles her by saying, oh honey, don't worry. I'm a writer with no ability to fight, so
I'll be fine.
His reassurance is, don't worry, because if this goes wrong, I'm totally ill-equipped to handle myself. Hey, Ryan, but I totally got your back,
If I get in trouble, I can run faster than Ryan, so I'll be fine. Let's go, buddy.
From Ryan's point of view, it's like, okay, oh, great, so you're saying you're a coward who can't fight, and you're my backup. Well, all right, well, same, I guess, so.
It's never stopped me before. I'm Ryan the Lion.
Right.
Incompetence is my brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yet another thing this episode does is not exactly Watchmen level visual transitions, but dissolves the link to different locations thematically. We skipped over one when Jagger was getting blasted by the sun. We dissolved to light coming through the window in Caitlin and Brom's apartment. And then, oddly enough, that scene is really bookended with another one from Mickey being entranced to Jagger on the other end of that entrancement.
Yes.
And they're not only cool, but it's something that I don't think the episodes have done up to this point. It's another first.
There's lots of story problems. There's lots of writing problems in this episode.
Yeah, it's a real shame because on a production level.
Yeah, the production level and the visual technique and the visual language that the episode's using is...
The acting.
Yeah. much, much better, and it's doing a lot more, and it's really hitting a lot of home runs in those areas.
What did I say before? This episode's firing on all cylinders? No, it's firing on most cylinders.
Right.
But the ones that are firing are really firing.
Yeah.
While we're hearing Jagger's voiceover waxing poetic about his lady love, he brings his fingers up to the clasp and then finally licks the blood off that dripped there, which seems a little bit like it's playing with fire. Leave the blood in place. Maybe wiping it off causes you to then reverse travel through time.
Just thinking this now for the first time, maybe that little beat is there to inform how at least Jagger would figure out maybe this is how this works.
I mean, maybe, but he doesn't do anything with it, and we're literally hearing what's in his head at this moment, and it's just him in love with Mickey. I never get the sense he wants to leave this place. We're saying that it also enthralls him and makes him in love with Mickey. It also seems to make him completely content to just live in this time period, which is another unanswered question. Does the clasp always bring you here and only here?
Yeah, why this time? That's fair. Was it just a random spin of the wheel, or could he have controlled it? Could it have been this is when the cape was originally stitched?
It does seem like the clasp and the cape possibly came from this time period. I'm not an expert on all things sartorial, but seems likely.
Right. But that's just us making up extra headcanon. It's not part of the show.
Which we have to with this show.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a reading on a later scene when he and Mickey are together and he recites the poem that, yes, he's not planning on traveling without her.
Well, dag nabbit, because I just convinced myself that the clasp only brings you here in time, despite the fact that originally I thought you could potentially go anywhere. But now I'm thinking, if it only brings you here and he's already here and they travel through time, it seems like the only other place it could take you is back to where they started in the 80s. So I guess that's not the case. I guess I have to go back to my first reading and that, yeah, now they're going to go somewhere else. And Lord knows I'd like to know where he's headed next.
I would not assume that the cape only takes you here. The question is, why did it take you here without any
guidance?
And maybe that's because there was no one guiding it, so therefore it goes to its true north.
The clasp has a default setting.
Maybe if you do it more willfully, like how Ryan does it later in the episode, that it will take you where you want it to take you versus just picking a random spot.
Yeah, you know, they installed Dickensian in London at the factory. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to unplug the clasp. You're going to plug it back in.
Maybe Friday the 13th does take place. I think we've mentioned Quantum Leap before. The implication was that Sam jumped wherever he jumped, whatever random time he jumped in, whatever random body he jumped into, wasn't truly random. It was being guided by God. Well, this isn't implied. This is saying if these cursed objects are cursed, it's being driven by the hand of the devil.
We're calling it, folks, Dickensian London, the worst time in human history.
Right. But maybe this is actually like Detective Munch or any other shows that have secret connections with one another. Maybe actually this is connecting Quantum Leap and Friday the 13th series.
This show is all happening in an autistic kid's snow globe.
Exactly.
Oh, you finally did it. You finally came up with the fan fiction premise you've been dreaming of all these years.
Right.
We'll stop recording so you can start writing.
Right. Sold in the room.
So in this next scene, I just want to point out that Caitlin has another one of her Caitlinisms when she asks Mickey where the pain is, and Mickey says it's in her heart. And Caitlin replies, "Oh, you're already laughing, so you remember. Pray tell, I've never heard of such a love."
Yeah.
What does that mean, Jeremiah?
Oh, man.
You got some pretty interesting reads on things. What the hell does that mean?
I can't even begin.
What could she possibly mean by that?
And also, though, like, it's weird, it's bizarre. It kind of almost goes against all these other lines that were clearly meant to hammer it down our throat, that there are no greater love than these two.
One for the ages.
Caitlin is written to be very thrown off by concepts, and they're always, like, basic concepts.
Wow, that's the most polite way you possibly could have put that.
Yeah. What? You guys live together? I've never heard of such a thing. You have this deep love for somebody? I've never heard such a thing, even though before I was glowing about my husband.
And later, after her husband goes off to kill a vampire and is late in returning, she speculates, oh, maybe he stopped at the pub.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, killing a vampire, like, how long does that really take? Like, you know, it should only take, like, 10 minutes. They've been gone a half hour.
I guess so, because those are some rose-colored glasses. Caitlin and Brom really are soulmates.
Yeah.
I mean, these two belong together. They are like minds.
She's not a woman of the world, despite the fact that in her time, she would be very much considered a woman of the world, just by the fact that she moved from Ireland to London.
She and Brom made for each other. Maybe they're cousins.
Yeah.
Still in the apartment, Caitlin completely buys in now on the idea that the boys have gone off to kill a vampire. But when Jagger shows up floating out the window, mind blown.
And also, Caitlin has not seen any of this. She's not witnessed any of this. She's been in the room the entire time. So the fact that Bram is struggling with it, but she's on board, is interesting. I mean, is she really on board, though? Or is she just being overly polite?
This was just a woman's role at the time.
Right. Just nod and agree. There's a man talking.
When your husband's buddy comes over and starts talking about how they have to go off and kill vampires, you just roll with it.
Yeah, that was the politics of the era.
You just cinch up your corset a little bit tighter, bite down, and go with it. We cut away several times to Ryan and Bram exploring the warehouse looking for Jagger, and Jagger is off floating outside Caitlin and Bram's apartment. But the boys discover another dead woman, tart status unknown. When did he go get her?
Yeah, and we don't see him interact with this woman at all. They just find the body. In the continuity that we've seen, it's him obsessed with Mickey. Somewhere off camera, he decides, I gotta go get her, Well, I got time for just a quickie here, just a little snack.
Is he going out during the day?
Yeah.
Going to finish off Jagger right now is predicated on the idea that he's trapped because it's still daylight. That's Ryan's whole thing. So either Jagger went out during the day and got her, or because the guys realized neither of them brought a timepiece and realized they've been out just a hair too long and the sun's set, did Bram go out in like that 2-minute interval, get a woman, bring her back here, kill her, and then take off again into the night?
Well, I'll go a step further. Where did the minimum of 12 hours of daylight go? They entered a warehouse before the sun's out, and then he gets hit by the sun as they're trying to escape. So the sun must have literally just come up. So they escape, they get Mickey back to the safety of Bram and Caitlin's apartment. They obviously have to see to her for a little bit, but do they spend 12 hours attending to Mickey? If Ryan's plan is, let's get to him while the sun is out, you don't wait until like the last hour. You got a minimum of 12 hours of sunlight.
Maybe there was an off-screen orgy.
Must have been. I mean, maybe that explains the kiss on the forehead,
That's why she's in a daze. She's the audience's conduit here. She represents all of us.
Right.
There's no explanation for that. There's no explanation for why another dead woman. What did that add? What did it change?
Right. Well, hold on. I have one thought.
Here we go.
Is this someone he murdered the night before? And then Bram and Mickey and Ryan never saw that body because they're too busy escaping from the vampire and not exploring the entire,
I'm just trying to figure out how broken language would have to be to match the equivalent of how broken the language of film is in this episode.
Right.
It would have to be a paragraph with no punctuation and no nouns and no verbs.
Frankly, pretty soon we'll probably be able to find more examples of that than not once we compile enough Twitter posts or, I guess, X posts.
Yeah, and most of them will be archived in the presidential library.
Exactly.
These non-Euclidean paragraphs. Actually, I just cracked it wide open. I've been commenting on how big this warehouse must be, that they keep cutting away and cutting back and cutting away and cutting back. I think he just happened to stumble across the warehouse from Synecdoche, New York.
Right.
We've got a London warehouse inside of a London warehouse inside of a London warehouse, and it's just warehouses all the way down.
Right. Actually, we're blaming this murder on Jagger, but maybe...
Jack the Ripper?
Yeah, maybe it's just a never-dead prostitute.
I have to point out, these guys discover the corpse of a woman, and instead of going to check on her, what it does is make them go, what time is it? And then off they go. These are our heroes, folks. Back in that house, Caitlin has to use even less energy to restrain Mickey from Jagger. She just sort of backs up and Mickey just goes with her.
Yes.
It's even less forceful than taking her by the hand.
It looks like she does have more brute natural strength than Ryan does.
That's true. Post-commercial break, Ryan and Bram rush home to discover the local constabulary overseeing Caitlin's body, and Bram is chickadee wrecked. Kevin Bundy, as Bram, absolutely wrings the pathos washcloth bone dry. Though not sure it's entirely fair to blame Ryan for bringing chaos into his home, but as with Caitlin earlier, given the raw emotion of the moment, I'll look the other way. John D. LeMay's subdued acting style counterpoints it perfectly, and this moment of profound regret is one of his more moving performances thus far in the series. On a more logical footing, I wonder if this death compelled the writers to spin Caitlin from whole cloth, implying Brom had a wife prior to Florence, or at least that this wasn't a name change, it's an intentional fabrication of a whole new person. On a less logical footing, Ryan notices this strange room can get even stranger, courtesy of something like a trap door in the angled roof, presently hanging open. Odd, given that Jagger entered through the door. Was this part of his egress? He can fly, but can he carry Mickey while doing so? I'm afraid we'll never know. Back in Vampire HQ, Mickey is asleep? Why? Does Jagger have some third haunted curio that casts a sleep spell? Doesn't matter because she wakes and Jagger proclaims that at last they're together. Maybe instead they're down by the shores of the Thames or something, because I swear I can periodically hear a body of water lapping against something. Jagger again confuses the issue of what the cape's power is by reciting the rhyme that declares the cape grants immortality and not control over a subject's desire, but the point is, he's about to bite Mickey, then travel through time with her. Unfortunately, just how high the stakes are here for both Mickey and Ryan really isn't conveyed. Ryan attempts to spam his signature move, leaping from the shadows to stab some back, but he screams while doing it, alerting Jagger to his ill-conceived assault. Now for a double whammy of unease. One, despite being spellbound, Mickey seems seriously concerned about Ryan, as if her feelings for him are deep enough to penetrate the sorcery-induced haze she's been laboring under. Two, Jagger actually says to Ryan, "Whatever that fair maiden was to you, she is no longer yours. She is mine." So I can sleep at night, I'm going to tell myself Ryan intended to say, "Oh, no, she's just my cousin," but couldn't get the words out, what with the hand crushing his trachea. Jagger also beseeches Ryan to say your prayers, my young friend, as if they aren't roughly the same age. Does becoming immortal also make you instantly old? So many questions. But Brom is a student of Ryan the Lion's signature fighting style and shivs Jagger through the back, getting his revenge. Ryan apologizes to Brom, and Brom apologizes for ever doubting him? Was that the source of the contention, and not the dead wife? Ryan now drops the bomb that he and Mickey need to return to their own time, and Brom simply replies, "I understand." Shouldn't that be, "I understand"? Wait, what? Does this stunt also mean that Bram Stoker will write the H.G. Wells sci-fi classic The Time Machine? They add their blood to the clasp, even though there's no obvious source for Mickey's to have come from. Then Brom insists on coming with, but is immediately talked out of it, so we're just treading water in the home stretch. Then, in a further bit of padding, Ryan touches his wound again, then puts his blood on the clasp again. Wait, hold on, back up. Okay, I get it now. This all plays out in a two-shot, and with all the heavy shadows, I couldn't tell what was happening the first time. Turns out, the first go-around, Ryan almost touched his bloody finger to the clasp, and Mickey was preparing to prick her finger on the clasp's pin, but neither action achieved its terminus owing to Brom's interruption. Now that the camera has dollied in on the clasp, the veil has been lifted, and I realize they got a little bonus padding, courtesy of Brom's imprudent interjection. Back in 1987, Mickey and Ryan are reunited with Jack, for whom only enough time has passed for him to realize they disappeared at all. It's only now, in color, and with the hindsight of Jeremiah's comments regarding how good Mickey looked in black and white, do I realize she is sporting the least flattering hairstyle we've seen on her. Funny, that. If you like the horror genre as much as we do, you can preview the horror comic book Requiem for a Psychopath right now for free at the Inner Demon Entertainment website. Imagine a world in which horror film slashers are real. Then imagine a troubled teen bringing one out of retirement to help him take revenge on his bullies. It was written by me and drawn by friend of the show, Stephen Yu. Again, that's Requiem for a Psychopath on the Inner Demon Entertainment website. And if you dig it, please either review and rate it 5 stars on Amazon, or don't rate and review it at all. Ratings of less than 5 stars send the algorithm into murder mode for some reason. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it. Our boys discover that Caitlin has been killed, and this is Kevin Bundy's time to shine. He's the actor that plays Brom. We obviously don't get the range that we get with Tom McCamus playing Jagger, or actually Frank, the character's name, for anyone who might want to look him up on IMDb. Kevin Bundy does give a great performance here, a very powerful one. He and Ryan play very well off each other. John D. LeMay's very understated acting style actually pairs nicely with Kevin Bundy's very intense style here.
I agree, but the one thing I'll say is, unfortunately, it's a little bit underdone by the exact dialogue.
Once again, the heart is there, but everything he's forced to say completely undermines it.
He says, "You with your stories about vampires," while he is standing over his dead wife who was killed by a vampire.
While he himself was out hunting said vampire.
He himself has been hunting, has ran away from, has been chased by, has seen multiple victims.
Listen, Jeremiah, you don't carry an entire strand of garlic bulbs under your clothing if you don't believe in vampires.
But it's the stories, Romeo. I'm sorry. But it's the stories, Robert. It's the stories that have come in that Ryan's been telling that's just caused all this drama.
That Ryan and Mickey brought into his home.
Right.
As if he didn't just meet a couple walking down the street and practically kidnap them.
Right. But they brought these stories into his life. Not actual vampires. Oh, no. Those are fine. But your stories, Ryan, ruined everything. Get out.
It's like if you took that acting exercise where one person can only say A and the other person can only say B, and you prove to the neophyte actors that it's not what you're saying, it's about how you're saying it. And then you just never went back like, okay, yeah, but we can't just leave A and B. We actually have to write some lines that make some kind of coherent sense.
Right.
But you just left A and B. You just left whatever nonsense was in the script, whether or not it had any logical meaning.
And based on the lines, this should actually conclude in a very different way. Abraham will be drinking in a bar years from now and looking sad. And people will be talking, what happened to Bram? His wife died. Oh, well, what killed her? Stories killed her. Never in a word sense. He used to be a writer, but stories killed his wife. Now he can't pick up a pen.
We'll see the Citizen Kane-esque shot of him dropping his almost finished manuscript, Bram Stoker's Dracula, into the fire and watching it get burned up as his tears fall on the embers and sizzle.
Stories have taken everything from me. What did vampires do? Oh, vampires didn't do anything. It was all the stories.
As if the script wasn't undermining poor Kevin Bundy's performance here, we get a shot of Ryan looking over and seeing that this room becomes even stranger than it already was, and that this weird slanted roof has a trap door in it. Not a window, sir, but what looks like a trap door, some type of roof access, even though if you went out there, you would immediately tumble down its 60-degree slant and fall 2-3 stories and break your neck. That little detail is weird in and of itself, but it also begs the question, did Jagger fly Mickey out of there?
Ah.
I mean, he enters through the door.
And there's no reason not to exit out the door.
He's not trapped.
Yeah.
There's no constables. There's no angry townsfolk chasing him. He just sort of lollygags in through the front door without being invited and apparently flies away, which I don't think I've ever seen anything in fiction where the vampire flies a passenger.
No, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good point.
It's a salt in the wound that it comes in the middle of this poor, impassioned actor's heartrending spiel about his dead wife.
And also, what is even the point? Let's say if he does fly out, what does that inform anyone about? We already know what happened.
We know he's a vampire. It's not like Ryan's like, this individual we're chasing can fly. Well, that narrows it down to vampire.
Right. Vampire showed up. He killed Caitlin. He took Mickey. What's his fight have to do with anything? What's that tell our characters?
To quote James Rolfe, why, what, why?
It's a detail that is weird, doesn't really make sense, and then even if it did make sense, it doesn't offer anything. Why even work yourself into that corner when there's no value to that corner?
And once again, I absolutely want to see it, and it happened off screen.
Yeah.
Like I'm picturing a vampire bat flapping desperately to keep itself aloft as it's got Mickey clutched by the hair hanging beneath it.
Well, and then, like, if he turns into the bat creature, that means he has to take off the cape. And then once he takes off the cape, does Mickey still want to go with him? And does he still want Mickey?
The ripples reverberating through time, Jeremiah.
Well, it must be 2 drops of blood.
I just realized something at this very moment because I have the clip open and I'm flipping through it as we're talking. Brom takes Caitlin in his arms. And then, to your point earlier about the lack of crosses in this episode, he takes out a rosary. It feels so Dumb and Dumber. You had a crucifix on you this whole time? Yeah. We're chasing vampires.
Right.
Never once busted out.
Decided to go to garlic instead.
Weird. So weird. And it's awkward, too, the way he's holding her. It's a nice two-shot, and then he has one free hand that kind of comes around the side and works the crucifix out so that we can actually see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the most awkward thing I've seen, hell, even in this episode, but it's a little bit unnatural. And now we have this kind of strange shot where he's mostly framed out, and we basically have his hand cupping Caitlyn's face and then his other hand holding a crucifix on the other side. The shot of the two of them was a far nicer moment to go out on. So they really wanted to put some emphasis on the rosary. But why?
This doesn't pay off later. This isn't Chekhov's gun.
Never coming back. Does this explain why he shows up at the end? Some kind of Christian turn of heart?
I don't know, man. And I'm about to skip around a little bit.
How can you? We have 5 minutes left.
When he does show up at the end, his first desire is to use the cursed object.
You mean the fact that he wants to travel through time with them?
There's sort of two readings on why he shows up Say Day. Number one, because it's the right thing and he pulls it together to do the right thing. But then the other thing he wants is he wants to get out of his time. He doesn't want to be here anymore.
I guess, although honestly, that struck me as an impulse item next to the cash register.
Oh, yeah, no.
You're buying baby formula and a pair of sweatpants, and then you're like, oh, time traveling bauble. Yeah, I'll take one of those too.
I don't think it was the main motivation, but that could be the only ever motivation, is what I'm saying.
Them's is our options.
So neither of that really seems to be about anything to do with this enlightened moment that he might possibly be having. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good take on that.
Yeah, the wheels are coming off, man. We're coming up with nothing.
I wonder if the cross or the rosary or some of those things had come up in the script or had come up in the shooting and maybe got cut for time. But given, as you've pointed out, how many unnecessary slow motion shots they work in, it seems like they're trying to stretch the time out. They're not cutting for time. They're stretching for time.
This feels like it would have been the animation of Friday the 13th, the series. We animate what we use in that one cell more.
Right.
You know what, though? You might have accidentally answered my next question, because did you notice the very Planet Terror moment when Jagger gets Mickey back to the warehouse? Although I actually now think maybe it isn't a warehouse because it sounds like there's water lapping up against a shore or something. I don't know where they are for this final showdown. Doesn't actually matter. We can discuss it. We don't have to. But the point is, Jagger has successfully absconded with Mickey, and now Mickey is asleep.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Must have fallen asleep after I killed those two.
Yeah.
What is this? He's literally just pacing and then stares at her as she sleeps. And then she wakes up. Just filler.
Yeah, is it?
There's about 6.5 minutes left in the episode, and we're just watching him watch her sleep. In a wide shot. It's not even like we're seeing his face, like it's adoring or something, and he doesn't do anything. And also, why is she asleep, Jeremiah?
Yeah, it seems like she should be so excited that she's finally with her betrothed. She can't hold back. She wouldn't be passed out and sleeping through it.
Didn't she just fly through the air with a vampire, we speculate? What real-life, long-distance relationship ends with you getting on a plane, flying to France to see your Parisian girlfriend you haven't seen for 4 months, and then the first thing you do
is pass out.
Is you guys go to sleep.
Right. Oh, man. Okay, from a practical standpoint, doesn't make logical sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
But let me work backwards here and see if any of this could possibly make sense. So,
were you starting with it doesn't make sense and then working backwards? Well, I can't wait to see where this goes.
Could it be, to clarify, she did not kill Caitlyn? She must have passed out, maybe not even seen Caitlyn get murdered, and therefore her soul is clean.
I want to follow you on these journeys, Jeremiah, but as I've said before, we do not see this show the same way.
Right.
I will point out Mickey was wide awake when Jagger grabbed Caitlyn by the throat and I think hoisted her into the air.
In theory, if that's what they wanted to do was keep Mickey's soul clean, then they should have had her pass out. But maybe that was just something they didn't get or couldn't get, or it just came off too cheesy.
My quick fix for this, in a perfect world,
and
this is unfair, and I understand how crazy productions can get, and you got to come up with solutions on the fly, and you shoot out of order, and it's confusing, etc., etc. But You have a character that's in a trance, that's being kept from the one they love. Maybe we say that puts a strain on you. So we simply have her passed out. We have a bit of a Zool situation, like something out of Nosferatu.
Right.
And then Jagger shows up, has the exchange with Caitlin. Instead of having Mickey weirdly behind Caitlin and not, walking around her, Mickey is passed out on a bed, sweating heavily. And then Caitlin gets up to deal with Jagger. That whole thing happens with Mickey being unconscious. Here she is, unconscious, and then wakes up. Perfect.
Yep.
I'm not saying I'm spinning gold here. I'm just saying, as a workman-like director, that would fly, right?
That would fly. That would be logical. You'd lose probably something that they wanted, which was more of Mickey being able to perform as an obsessed woman in that scene with Caitlin, where she's gleeful to have him show up. But then, as I said, the way that scene plays out, it does leave...
You've created a problem.
You've created a problem because now you're hero of the series. Even though you could easily say, well, it's not her fault, she's under a spell. But would someone still say, well, yeah, but she's our hero, and she's there cheering on the murder of an innocent woman?
Maybe that wouldn't have flown in the 80s. Today would be fine.
That might have gotten pushback from somebody to where they're like, okay, well, what if we imply that she was passed out? And then they do a poor job at it, which is what you're also pointing out. And maybe it was one of those things where it was like, all right, we'll just write in that she's passed out and then convince the money people. That cleans up the problem, right? And they go, oh, yeah, I guess it does. And it really doesn't. Sometimes you're sort of trying to fool the gatekeepers rather than fully deliver on what they're asking.
Well, see, I was just routing it up to your first explanation. They were short on time.
Yeah, who knows?
How do we pad this? I don't know. She's passed out, has to wake up. He's literally just pacing.
Right.
Now he's the vessel for the audience.
Right.
All right, let's get on with it. Anytime now. I wonder if this is the very head of the take, and like the guy with the clapboard has just run off camera. And yes, back then it would have been a guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, hang on a second, we need to check something. And Tom McCamus is just pacing, waiting for the director to call action.
And they're just prepping for the scene.
Unless you had anything else, I guess I'll just ask real quick. Do you have any reason to believe this isn't the warehouse? Because as I said, I do. There's this weird sound. Strikes me as a river lapping up against its banks or something. Like this is supposed to be down by the Thames.
I have to assume it's the warehouse because how else did Ryan find them?
Yes, because our antagonist only goes back to the one base of operations, even though it's been widely discovered.
It would make sense for him to go somewhere else, but if he goes anywhere else, how would Ryan possibly find them?
Hey, you know what else, Jeremiah? Where's the angry mobs? They just stopped on day one when they didn't find him? At least one more woman's been killed. Two, really.
That does fit with how angry mobs often operate, for better or for worse.
They burn themselves out quickly.
They do. We get politically charged on something, and then a week later, we move on to something else. In this case, I guess a day later.
Yeah, real fast media cycles back in turn of the century London.
Right.
He doesn't enlist the aid of the bobbies, doesn't enlist the angry mob that can't wait to kill Jagger.
Well, angry mobs, by their nature, something quickly grabs their attention. They quickly act irrationally.
The mob's all off chasing down Jack the Ripper.
Right.
Maybe Mr. Hyde.
Maybe they're out now chasing stories.
Fair.
They got torches and they're going around looking to burn some books because stories just killed that woman.
I'm sorry, of course. I should have taken a page from the book of Caitlin. They're probably all just at the pub.
Right. Yeah. She's only been gone here for 6 minutes, Romeo, and you've already... Oh, I'm sorry. She's only been gone for 6 minutes, Robert.
I'm sorry, Jeremiah. Why are you laughing so hard by saying my name? You want to tell the good folk at home why you think my name is so funny? Is it only because you've used my last name twice now accidentally?
Right.
I gotta admit, though, I do like the fact that, again, I'm sure they're shooting Canada for London, but the fact that you can see their breath in all these shots is cool.
Yes.
As someone that grew up in cold climates, I always appreciate it. Even when there's no snow on screen, just seeing people's breath. Could be The Exorcist. It's just always kind of cool.
Yeah, even though that's a very natural thing that many of us were very used to, for some reason when you see it in this context, it adds to the creepiness. It's the same with The Exorcist. It's creepy the fact that we see their breath.
So Mickey wakes up, Ryan shows up. Ryan once again tries to stab some back.
Well, he screams, thus he could have got him in the back.
As is his wont. He does that every time and blows it every single time.
Yeah, he's charging from behind, but lets out a big scream so it gives the vampire time to turn around and stop him.
Yeah, at least last time Mickey saw it coming and actually warned Jagger. This time Ryan did it to himself.
Totally did it to himself. It's actually a really nice effect.
Being run through with a stake, you mean?
We see the stake does come out from his chest. There is a practical effect that's going on there that, again, you'd almost expect the show not to show it, to maybe have a close-up shot on Ryan's face or on Jagger's face and then cut to the stake being there. But they actually show it spring out from his body.
Are you saying you wouldn't expect it because it would be too graphic for television at the time?
And it's just a never time commitment on a run and gun shoot. It's being played as a surprise, so there's an easy justification for, oh, we're not going to spend the time rigging up this magic trick. Just imply it in the editing.
Yeah, we do see it burst out of his chest like he's on the Nostromo.
Thought that was a nice little touch. I would have expected them to cut it for time.
I would have expected them to do it in slow motion, Jeremiah.
Well, that's true. But there's a logic of what we know about these things in the show issue with that, which is if you've driven the stake through the man who is wearing the cape from behind.
Damage the cape.
Isn't that sort of a part of the thing? Like you can't really destroy the cursed objects?
Well, I guess I didn't notice that because I was more distracted by another Brahmism where he apologizes to Ryan the Lion for ever doubting him. Was that the source of your beef and not your dead wife?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, continuing in the vein of lines where they just casually inform Brahm that they now have to return to their own time like they're Poochie, piecing out.
You have this fired up right now where you can see it, correct?
Sure do.
Watch Mickey's face when Ryan picks up the cape. When he's holding the cape by himself, which, keep in mind, what's the power of the cape? Makes you irresistible to women.
Go on.
Does she have this extra adoring, lost for words look at Ryan?
Jeremiah, I'm not going to dignify this with a response. I thought you said you were numb to it. Actually, you've been won over by it. Clearly, you're writing some fanfic of your own over here.
When he picks up the cape, I'm telling you, there's a little moment where she's sort of looking at him. That cape is just doing its thing.
There's a weird moment after he gives her the cape. In an entirely different context, I could read her face right there as kind of eyeing Ryan up.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, he's fully given her the cape.
That could still kind of work, though, in the sense that, like...
Why are you trying to make this happen? I don't understand.
Well, it's not even
What do you get out of this, Jeremiah?
It's not trying to make the cousin thing happen. It's trying to make the cape thing happen. Because normally in this vampire story, it's the vampire that has the power of seduction. But we've established now that it's the cape. In theory, Ryan, in handling the cape, it should be rubbing off on him at least a little bit.
I guess. He also posited a magic hole theory. I don't know if the cape's damaged. Does it still work?
Maybe that's why it's only slightly adoringly. She's not just totally throwing herself at him.
Or yeah, maybe it's the fact that it's her cousin. Maybe she's got enough humanity left not to be attracted to her cousin. Here she's holding it, but then hugs Brahm, so he's in contact with it. Is she falling in love with him too for that split second?
Well, you never know.
I mean, we said that it's kind of heat-seeking. I mean, I could just as easily headcanon that once she was targeted by the cape as Brahm's paramour, maybe it doesn't work on anyone after that.
Potentially, Ryan could have slowly have been starting to get what he's always seemingly been wanting, and he's just totally oblivious to it the entire time.
Okay, you finally sold me. As long as Ryan is the butt of the joke here.
As long as he's just unaware and oblivious.
Oh, yeah, no, now that I go back, her face is a real no theater mask, so I'm just going to go ahead and interpret that as she's absolutely enthralled with him. What a hunk. Boy, I'd like to get me some of that cousin meat.
Yeah.
He is so muscly. It's Ryan holding the cape and now touching Brahm. Now that I'm looking at Brahm's face, based on what you told me earlier about the man, I mean, how are we defining gender here, Jeremiah? Do you want to explain that to the audience?
Oh, I'm not going anywhere near that.
Oh, no, that one you won't touch.
No.
You'll spin elaborate webs to get two cousins together, but you won't touch that third rail, huh? I don't know. Mickey and Ryan are both holding the cape, and they're both looking at Brahm. There's a lot going on here. This is going some places.
It could have already gone those places. We don't know.
At this point, they're spent. Going with what you said about needing to stretch this one out. Brahm's whole thing of, no, wait, I want to go with you.
Oh, yes.
No, you can't come with us. All right.
So I got two things there. I guess I'll do the second one first just because it's briefer. So when Mickey and Ryan transport out, the shot lingers. There's a little extra beat there where they transport out and Bram's just sort of left standing there.
Looking around for him.
And there's a moment where it's sort of like, like maybe the actor's trying to figure out, all right, well, I'm waiting for it to cut. Like, what do we do? Like, it's awkward. It feels awkward. Like, it feels like it should have cut. And it hangs, and then he kind of turns and looks at the dead body of the man he killed. It's like, oh, yeah, there's that. And then it cuts.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'm going to jail for murder.
Right. And I don't know why they didn't cut sooner.
My good sir, are you trying to convince me there was something unnatural in this episode?
There might have been. Maybe one thing. Well, maybe two. Maybe just two. Well,
maybe 22. This is the to serve man of unnatural storytelling.
Right. The air thing from the scene, just to back up, using the class to get back to their own time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're using a cursed object. They're in a desperate situation, but then again, aren't a lot of the people who get these cursed objects often in desperate situations? In theory, would this not count as using a cursed object to improve your situation?
I mean, sure. With the one notable exception of Uncle Lewis. I didn't feel like this show has talked about whether or not your soul is on the line for using these objects.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, but I guess... Okay, now I got to go back because we skipped over my note about how, honestly, I was trying to give this episode all the kudos I could. But I have to say, this final dramatic showdown really doesn't feel like the stakes are established. It doesn't feel that dramatic, given that Ryan is about to be really screwed if Brom can pull off this plan of traveling with Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone is. This is the climax of the episode, and frankly, it just sort of comes and goes.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
But to go back to your point, I don't know what to say except, yeah, they use it, but I guess I never thought that they couldn't use these things. It's do as I say, not as I do.
So despite the fact that outside of Uncle Lewis, it hasn't shown it, as an audience member, wouldn't you have presumed that?
No, absolutely not. No.
You wouldn't have assumed that, like, by using the cursed object that you're...
I mean, I haven't. It's not hypothetical. It's never once occurred to me.
Interesting. Okay. I felt like that would be a natural, even without any future episodes or past episodes or Uncle Lewis or anything like that.
Yeah. Saying
it just as a first-time viewer. Used an object that's cursed by the devil. You're condemning your soul by doing that.
So young Mistress Mary in episode 1 is going to hell?
Arguably, yeah.
I mean, I would say she is, but because she's an absolute and utter unrepenting psychopath, not because she used a haunted doll.
So then that raises the question, you think that they would be equally as condemned if they did not use the cursed object? A lot of times these cursed objects come into everyday people.
Right.
But they're people that do have some sort of flaw, some sort of desire. They have something that the devil or the curse can get a hold of and then magnify. Is the implication then that if you don't let it corrupt you, that then you'd be fully free to go ahead and use this cursed object without any repercussions?
It kind of seems like this episode answers that. I mean, I can only say so much, Jeremiah. I've seen 13 of these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You got a much deeper well to draw from, given the mythology. I obviously can't speak to it all.
Yeah.
Maybe the very next episode, they go talk to a priest in a church and they get into all kinds of stuff about souls and divine retribution and the nature of forgiveness and redemption. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't see any evidence of it so far. I thought Uncle Lewis's soul being taken was a direct result of a pact he made with the devil and not about any specific object.
Mm-hmm. With the 12 episodes you've seen prior to this.
Yeah.
Can you think of any examples where someone used the cursed object and was not corrupted by using them and not having to pay a comeuppance?
Well, you keep saying corrupted, but I mean, I guess I think about half the people that seem to get their hands on them seem like they were just evil to begin with.
Yeah, as I said, they usually do have a fault, some flaw, right?
But not in like the classic Greek, they're heroes, but they have one fatal flaw. No, like the dude using the Cupid statue was a rapist.
The one at the beginning was a rapist, but the one who we see throughout the show, and I've not watched that.
The other one, I think, was a homicidal killer.
Well, one was, using it to rape and kill women. But the guy who gets it, the guy who seems a little challenged, if I remember right.
Right, Eddie.
In theory, he's just lonely and looking for affection at the beginning. That's a very human, understandable, relatable desire. But then he lets that desire play out in a way that's callous and uncaring and is willing to let people be hurt in order to satisfy that desire once he gets the cursed object. But he wasn't doing anything evil before he gets the cursed object. He just had a very understandable, very relatable, very human longing for love and connection and all these things, or at least what he perceived to be love.
Well, exactly, but that's the problem. It's what he perceives to be love. But
Absolutely.
This dude's at least a stalker, and maybe, I don't know, the dude lives in a boiler room. The story, again, just seems like it's telling me this guy's John Doe out of 7. There's not a lot of redemption here. Maybe he hasn't killed yet, but the thumb is so hard on the scale toward serial killer that getting an object just seems like, okay, that's why he did it now and not 6 months from now.
Right. but it's a flaw. It's a flaw to confuse infatuation with love. It's a flaw to confuse your own desires and let that dismiss the other person completely. But it's a very human flaw, and a flaw very common amongst people that are sort of lonely and longing.
Well, yeah, of course he has some good qualities. I mean, Hitler liked animals. Ted Bundy
Sure.
worked in a suicide prevention office.
Yeah.
Such as the duality of man. I mean,
I guess what I'm saying is that there's something there that's wrong, and then when he gets the power, the curse helps to corrupt that even more.
Well, I don't know, because due to the ambiguity of these episodes, I don't know, because often, like this character uses these items without even knowing what he stumbled backwards into.
Yes.
And I don't even know if half these episodes, the people using the object, they know the effect, but they don't even know, like, what is this? How does it work? I don't come away from this show going, oh yeah, this is the moment of every episode where the character realizes what's happening and then has to make that moral choice. It doesn't feel like I'm watching a Spider-Man film here where he's choosing great responsibility or to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like eventually they come across these things and realize, like, oh, I can do a thing with it. And a lot of them just seem like it's just a natural part of continuing on the trajectory they were already on.
Yeah. See, I feel like this episode's an exception because, as we've discussed, like, Jagger doesn't seem to have that. He does seem more like a victim here.
Okay.
I sort of feel like maybe this is a one-off episode, lost that thread.
Are you also positing that they did this intentionally to take that idea out at the legs here because, like, it would be too sad if Jagger was also doomed to hell on top of everything else that happens to him in this episode?
No, I think just in the writer's room, they probably just approached this without even thinking about it as a cursed object episode and just thinking about it as a vampire episode.
Well, writing credits are rarely divvied up fairly, but at this moment, I'm not even sure. I thought to double check to see if this episode was written by someone different than all the other episodes.
Mm-hmm.
At least I think one or two individuals always seem to get some credit for the story, which seems a little bit suspect.
Yeah.
I don't know what their writer's room actually looked like, but maybe different team, different writers, weren't hip to the lore that had already been established. Like the Halloween episode, this one seems to be a little bit of a different bag.
I mean, it wasn't even that they weren't hip. It was just that in this anthology style approach, they just switched gears. And in doing so, lost track of the couple things that are usually consistent in these things. It really broke formula, but in breaking formula to the degree that it did, it also perhaps went against its own lore in a couple ways. And I feel like this is one example of that. Jagger being an innocent victim is an example of that. I think Mickey and Ryan being able to use the object without consequences, an example of that. It goes against what they'd established in the previous 12 episodes.
I'm just going back for a second to check out episode 5, Halloween. No! Yeah, that's what I thought. What I thought proves to be a bombshell bit of precedent that takes the discussion in a completely new direction. Will we ever reach a rapprochement? Or as with most debates, will our inability to properly define our terms leave us endlessly arguing past each other? Join us next time to find out and finish our discussion of episode 13. Probably. I really don't know. I would have never guessed we'd still be talking about it after 5 episodes, so I'm hardly a qualified prognosticator. Just a mere puppet dancing on Jeremiah's strings. See you then. Thanks for listening, everyone. We know you have a lot of choices when choosing a Friday the 13th the Series podcast, and we sincerely thank you for choosing ours. Special thanks to Joshua Romeo for original music and to Stephen Yu for original art. And be sure to check out the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe Schlepsky discusses G.I. Joe. If you want to support our show, you can leave a review and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If you want an occasional update on our projects, you can sign up for our newsletter at the Inner Demon Entertainment website. And if you want to complain about social media with us on social media, you can find links on our website. And always remember what Carl said to Frylock. It don't matter. None of this matters. Good night, everybody.